What's up everybody, it's Seth from Fowler Customs, and today I'm reviewing one of the very first 3D printed shoes available to the public, the Under Armour Architech Futurist. Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't yet, but with all that being said, let's get into it. So as you can tell by the intro to the video and also the title of the video, this is the Under Armour Architech Futurist. Now this is by no means the first shoe with 3D printed elements to hit the market. In fact, this isn't even the first 3D printed Under Armour shoe. Although in a lot of people's opinion, and honestly even my own, this shoe might not look as good as the Adidas Futurecraft, but it's more accessible. And that's where I think Under Armour is really innovating in the 3D printed shoe market. Yes, this shoe does retail for $300, which is definitely a lot, but from what I've read, Under Armour has made a lot more of these available than Adidas made of their own 3D printed shoe. But pricing aside, the thing we're all interested in is whether this 3D printed sole is any good. So let's get into the review. The upper of the shoe is composed of two main parts. You've got this plasticky low top sneaker that's actually made a high top sneaker by this neoprene shroud. You're gonna get most of your support from this low top area. The shroud honestly is just there for looks. It doesn't actually do anything to support your ankle. Starting from the toe, you've got this embossed Under Armour logo that's next to this ridge that actually separates your big toe from the rest of your toes. I'm not sure exactly why it's there. You don't even really feel it on foot, but I mean, it's there nonetheless. Moving back on the shoe, you start to get into the neoprene shroud with the Architect branding in orange. There are perforations all around the midfoot of the shroud, but because they cover up the low top sneaker, you're not actually gonna get any ventilation, and they're kind of just there for aesthetics. The shroud does have what Under Armour is calling this quarter-length zip. One thing I found when wearing the shoe, and I'll get more into this later on in the review, but the shoe itself does run pretty small. So for that reason, I never wore the shoe with the zipper up just because it became really tight, especially around my ankle. The good news is that underneath the shroud, you've actually got a tongue and a full lacing system, so you can actually tighten that up and leave the zipper unzipped and you're good to go. While I'm on the subject of the laces, one thing you'll notice is that these aren't actually regular laces that you tie. They've got this sort of odd ziplock thing going on if you want to tighten the shoe. I can't actually get this to tight. There we go. Got it. Needless to say, I understand why they did this, and that's because it's easier to tuck behind the shroud than regular laces. This lacing system does provide pretty good lockdown, but to be honest, I left it pretty loose most of the time because, like I said before, the shoe runs pretty small. The inside of the shoe is pretty well padded, and when you can actually get your foot into the shoe, it does feel pretty nice. But getting your foot into the shoe is a challenge. One, like I already mentioned twice, the shoe is very small, and two, there's something about this tongue that just makes it want to roll, so that when you try and slide your foot in there, the edges of it kind of roll up against your foot, and that just makes it almost impossible to get the shoe on your foot. Unless you literally hold the sides of the tongue out like this when you're trying to get it on, you're not going to get it on your foot. The padding and cushion inside the shoe is made up of speed form, which I actually really like because the more you wear this, the more it becomes a one-to-one fit to your foot and becomes even more comfortable. Moving back on the shoe, you've got another Under Armour logo, and then halfway through your ankle, the shroud actually turns from neoprene into elastic, which thank God it does, because if this wasn't stretchy enough, there would be no way you're getting your foot into this shoe. Something that I really like is that they actually stitch the elastic to the heel of the shoe so that when you're actually trying to pull this on your foot, you're not gonna rip the shroud off the shoe. I think that's an important touch, and I'm glad they added it. Moving down on the shoe, you've got the Architect Futurist claim to fame, the 3D printed midsole. Now granted, it is only the back half of the shoe, but to be fair, I think there's a couple reasons they did that. The first, if you'll notice, there's actually a pretty thick cushion midsole above the 3D printed area, and there just literally is not enough space in the toe to add any more 3D printed material under there. And the second, and I think most likely reason, is that this white midsole area is actually pretty well cushioned, and that cushion runs all the way down to below the toe, so that when you step, you actually get this nice cushion response right underneath your toe. Now you guys might be wondering why, if the shoe has a 3D printed midsole, does it need that extra layer of cushion all the way throughout the shoe? And to be honest, it's because the 3D printed midsole is not soft at all. The thing that surprised me most about the shoe when I got it in hand is how stiff these 3D printed strands actually are. Now, some of you guys may know, professionally, I'm an industrial designer, which means I prototype a lot of stuff by 3D printing it. So 3D printed sneakers have always been really interesting to me because it combines two of my favorite things, industrial design and sneakers. And I've got to be honest, I don't really see the point of this 3D printed midsole. I mean, yes, I get it. It's a 3D printed midsole. It's the future. It's crazy. It's cool. It's customizable. Awesome. And yes, a lattice design like this that has elements that weave in and out of each other is impossible to injection mold. I get that. But what does it do? This midsole definitely looks sick, and when you actually look at it from the side, you can see straight through it, which I think is super cool. But I've got to say, I don't think the novelty of a 3D printed midsole justifies the $300 price point. But cost aside, one thing I will say about this midsole is that it is relatively responsive, so if you do put a lot of pressure on it, you can feel some sort of feedback, but it was a lot less than I was expecting. The way I would describe the feel of this midsole is that it's about the same stiffness as like a really tough rubber. It actually doesn't have a lot of give unless you press on one of these strands individually. Also, this is nitpicking, but I'm really not a fan of the shade of gray that they used on the 3D printed area. I know on the previous Architect they made it red, so I know they can dye it or use different filaments or whatever it is. I just don't get why they chose this shade of gray. It's not anywhere else on the shoe. I don't know why they didn't just make it like that orange on the inside or something else, something to make it pop, but this, not this. Finally, moving to the bottom of the shoe, you've got this nub traction pattern. The stiffness of the outsole actually changes based on what part of the bottom of the shoe you're touching. The heel, midfoot, ball of your foot, and the big toe are all this stiffer material, and all the other areas that need a bit more flex or a bit more cushion use that same foam that you find on the midsole. Overall, I know I've been downplaying some of the tech on this shoe, but to be honest, this shoe is cool as shit. Like, part of this shoe was made on a 3D printer. That's crazy. Yes, I may not think the performance is anything special, but I mean, this is a lifestyle shoe. You're not really gonna be running in this anyway. This is a shoe that you buy purely to stunt. You wear this shoe to the club. If you're European, you might wear this shoe on track day in your Alfa Romeo. You might even just wear this shoe around the office just to show your coworkers how advanced you are. I don't know what you wanna wear this shoe for. For me personally, this is definitely not an everyday shoe. This is a shoe I'll break out every couple weeks or so just to feel like I'm in the future. And you know what? That's not a bad thing because this shoe is pretty dope. I'm really excited that sneaker brands are innovating. Yes, this shoe might not be for everyone, but you know what? They're testing out some new technology that might find its way into everyday shoes in the future. Who knows? So good job, Under Armour. You made a pretty cool thing. Now that we've got the review out of the way, let's throw these guys on feet and see how they look. That's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Make sure to leave a comment in the comment section down below letting me know what your thoughts are on 3D printed shoes and whether you'd see yourself grabbing a pair in the future. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to Fowler Customs if you want to see more content just like this, and follow Fowler Customs on Snups, Instagram, and on Twitter.